Alex, I've spent 30 years convincing wood and steel to do my bidding, but glass is the only material that's actually sentient, and it's usually grumpy.
Sentient? It's silica and sand, Tiger. It doesn't have a personality. It just breaks where you tell it to, or where you don't.
That's the thing. Wood has a grain you can negotiate with. Metal has a melting point you can reach. But glass, it remembers every mistake you've made since the third grade. You don't cut glass, really. You just suggest a path of least resistance and pray it's in a good mood. I was working on a small sun catcher yesterday, streaky amber glass, beautiful stuff, and I swear it waited until I had the last piece perfectly shimmed to just snap right across the middle for no reason other than spite.
Maybe it just didn't like your music choice, but seriously, we're diving into the shimmering world of stained glass today. I've seen your hands after a weekend of this. It looks like you got into a fight with a box of angry house cats.
It's the glitter of defeat, Alex. Tiny shards everywhere. But honestly, if you have the right tools, it's not the black magic people think it is. My old man started me on this when I was about 8. He gave me a tungsten carbide wheel cutter and a scrap of window glass and said, "Don't bleed on the carpet."
Clear instructions, very parental. So, for the folks listening who didn't grow up in a literal workshop, what are we actually looking at to get started? Because I looked at the prices of these grinders and my wallet actually flinched.
It's a medium to high buy-in hobby, I'll give you that. You can't just use your kitchen pliers and a box cutter. You need the big three: a good cutter, a set of specialized pliers, and a grinder.
Let's talk about the cutter. I see the one you're holding has a little reservoir in the handle. Is that for, what, luck?
Close. It's for cutting oil. Never dry run a glass cutter. It's like trying to drive a car with no oil in the engine. The wheel gets hot, the friction builds up, and instead of a clean, microscopic score, you get a jagged, crunchy mess. You want that sound, that high-pitched, satisfying zip, like a zipper on a heavy jacket.
Okay, so we've made our suggestion to the glass with the cutter. Now I see two different pairs of pliers. One looks like it has a duckbill, and the other looks like it's for pulling teeth.
Those duckbills are your running pliers. They have a curved jaw that puts pressure on both sides of your score line. You give it a gentle squeeze, and pop! The crack runs right down the line like a bolt of lightning. The tooth pullers? Those are Grozer pliers. Those are for nibbling.
Nibbling, right, because we're all just squirrels in the shop.
Exactly. When you have a tiny bit of glass that didn't break perfectly, or you need to round off a corner that your grinder can't reach, you groze it. You just chew away the excess. It's a very crunchy process.
Speaking of grinders, one of our listeners, Debbie, was asking about the grinder. She's been using an old glass tar for 12 years, and the motor is starting to sound like a blender full of gravel. Is it worth the revolutionary price tag?
Stained glass folks are loyal to their grinders like gearheads are to their trucks. The grinder is the Ferrari of the world. Quiet, powerful, fancy lights. But here's the reality. If you're just starting, any decent diamond bit grinder will save your soul. Without a grinder, your pieces will never fit. You'll be trying to bridge gaps with solder. And let me tell you, solder is not structural glue. It's a bridge, not a filler.
So we've cut it, we've nibbled it, we've ground the edges smooth so we don't end up in the ER. Now comes the shiny tape?
Copper foil. This is the heart of the Tiffany style. You wrap every single edge of every single piece of glass. It's tedious, it's meditative, it's also the place where most beginners fail because they don't center the tape. If your foil's wonky, your solder lines will look like a mountain range on a map.
I saw a tip about warming the glass in the winter months. Is glass really that temperature sensitive?
Oh, absolutely. Cold glass is brittle and stubborn. If you're working in a garage in February, the glass will run wherever it wants. I've actually used a heating pad on my workbench before. You want the glass at a nice, comfortable room temperature. If it's shivering, it's going to shatter.
Let's get to the part everyone loves and hates. The soldering. We had a question from Dave, who tried to be eco-friendly and recycle 30 pounds of old solder from a teardown. He said it's clumping up and won't flow.
Poor Dave. I appreciate the hustle, but recycling solder is like trying to bake a cake with breadcrumbs from 5 different bakeries. That old solder is full of dross, oxides, old flux, dirt, and probably some lead-based sins from 40 years ago.
So the cost saver turned into a 30-pound paperweight.
Precisely. For stained glass, you want that 60-40 tin-lead mix to be virgin, clean, and happy. And Dave, check your flux. If your flux is old or you aren't using enough, your solder will just sit there like a glob of cold oatmeal. It needs that chemical reaction to wet the copper.
We also had Kelly mention she's getting black residue on her solder lines during a long-term project. She's even tried steel wool.
Stained glass is a race against oxidation. If you foil a piece and then leave it on the bench for 2 months while life happens, that copper develops a skin. The solder won't bite. Kelly, you've got to clean as you go. Use something like Quick Clean or even just a good soap and water scrub after you solder to get that acidic flux off there. If it stays on, it'll eat your finish and leave those black mold spots.
That brings up a good point about scale. Another listener is starting a 30-inch panel and is worried about it warping or hinging at the joints. How do you keep something that big from folding like a lawn chair?
Geometry is your friend, but gravity is your enemy. On a panel that size, you cannot rely on copper foil alone. You need reinforcement. I usually hide restrip, which is a thin bit of brass or copper, within the solder lines. Or better yet, use lead cane for the outer frame. If you just hang a 30-inch copper foil panel by 2 hooks, in 5 years, it'll be a 31-inch panel with a very sad curve in the middle.
So basically, don't build a skyscraper with Scotch tape.
Exactly. You have to think about where the weight is pulling.
Real talk, Tiger. You've been doing this forever. What was the absolute, I should just go back to bed moment for you with glass?
Oh, easy. I was working on a transom window for a client. 3 weeks of work. I was applying the final patina, the chemical that turns the silver solder black. I was tired. I was rushing to meet a deadline. I picked up the whole panel to move it to the sink for the final wash, and my heel caught on a loose bit of floorboard.
No.
Oh, yes. It was like slow motion. The panel didn't just break, it hit the edge of the workbench and exploded. It sounded like 1,000 wind chimes dying at once. I sat on the floor for probably 20 minutes just staring at the pile of blue and gold shards.
Did you quit?
I went and got a sandwich, then I came back, swept it up, and started over, because that's the soul of the maker, Alex. You pay your dues in broken things. But the second time, I did the whole project in 4 days. Your hands remember what your brain is too frustrated to process.
That's actually a beautiful way to look at it. Even the spiteful glass teaches you speed.
It really does. My final takeaway for anyone standing at the edge of this hobby: don't buy the cheapest glass. The art glass with the swirls and the textures, it's the most expensive part of the craft, but it's also the stuff that makes the light sing. You can have the most perfect solder lines in the world, but if the glass is dull, the project is quiet. Go for the glass that makes you want to hold it up to the sun.
Sounds like a plan. Just maybe wear some gloves while you're holding it up to the sun.
Good point. Glass is beautiful until it reminds you it's basically a very pretty razor blade.
Thanks for joining us in the Tiger Den. Go make something beautiful and keep your Band-Aids close.
Catch you next time. Keep the score clean.